I'm just giving up on my camera. Now we're moving to my phone. This is my third time saying this. Hi, hello, my name is Jordan. Welcome back to my channel. My camera is being very weird. My actual camera, this is my phone. And I don't know how to fix it or why it's doing it, but I really want to just film this clip so that we can move on. So we're doing it on my phone. Hello, welcome. I have a few more days of winter break before I have to go back to work. Why does nothing want to work for me? Why is this being so difficult? Just would like to film a reading vlog for this book. That's all I wanted to say. I have a couple more days left of winter break before I have to go back to work on Monday, which is a tragic thought that we're not thinking of yet. It's only Thursday. I have so many more days left. I'm telling myself to soften the blow. But I have read and reviewed every single book that Sarah J. Maas has released, aside from like Catwoman, and I wanted to read and review this for you guys as well. I'm gonna vlog it the same way that I vlogged the last two books in this series. This is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third Crescent City book. This has been out for nearly a year and I've owned it since release day and I have not read it because, I mean, it's a big book. This is a commitment of time, of emotions, of a lot of things. So I'm gonna read a little bit today since I have free time on break and Pat's at work. And I just think that this would be like a really fun way to use my relaxation time for a little bit. So we're gonna jump on into this and it's gonna be, I think, a fun time. I don't remember entirely how the last book ended. I remember there was introductions of old characters from old series. By the way, if you didn't know, this is going to be a spoilery vlog, so if you don't want to be spoiled for this book, then you should probably not continue watching any of this. But I remember that like Reese and Feyre, I think, were introduced at the end of the last book, but I don't really remember a lot of what happened. That should be fine, right? A world in darkness, a burning spark, a blaze of stars. Bryce Quinlan never expected to leave Midgard, but now that she has, all she wants is to get back. Everything she loves is in Midgard, her family, her friends, her mate. Stranded in a strange new world, she's going to need to keep all her wits about her if she wants to find her way home again. Okay, so she's not, they didn't come to her, she went to them. And that's no easy feat when she has no idea who to trust. Hunt Athalar has found himself in some deep holes in his life, but this one might be the deepest of all. After a few brief months of having everything he ever wanted, he's imprisoned again, stripped of his freedom and without a clue as to Bryce's fate. He's desperate to help her, but until he can escape the Asiri's leash, his hands are quite literally tied. I kind of very vaguely remember that. Okay, I think I'm just gonna jump in. It'll be fine. We're gonna have a grand old time. I feel like Sarah J. Maas has done a pretty good job of like reminding us what is going on in the beginning part of this book. Maybe not so much like who specific characters are, because I was like a little confused by some of the names that I couldn't really remember, but like the lore and history of what's going on. I'm sorry. This is like, my camera is not working as I was mentioning earlier and I'm using my phone. We have Bryce stuck in Rhysand, Feyre's world, which we don't, I think, actually have a name for that planet quite yet. But she's stuck there. She was trying to get to Hell, ended up there instead. And we're learning like the history, or being reminded of the history of like the propaganda versus like the real history that the Asiri feed the people in Midgard. And we know that there were people who came from Rhys's world and Feyre's world to Midgard 15,000 years ago. And that's also when the old language disappeared and Amren was in prison during the time that this had happened. But before she went into prison, all these people and like artifacts were in that world. And then she came out of prison and she mentioned that like lots of people were just missing and they had just assumed that they moved on to other lands or other places, what have you, but it appears that they are the ones who went to Midgard. So they're the original Starborn Fae. And that's when the sword went as well. And it was led by Thea and Peleus, who are clearly people that Amren knows because she got a little like, you know, reaction out of her when those names were said. Thea went to Midgard. She brought two daughters, Helena and a second daughter that nobody knows the name of, no one remembers the name of because it's been lost to history. But Helena had to marry Peleus, and he's the one who turned on all of them and ended up siding with the Asteri, bowed to them and allowed them to invade Midgard. And I'm still waiting to see, will Throne of Glass come into this play, eventually as well? Can they also get to that world? And they said that there's 3 worlds that had not been conquered by the Asteri or the Asteri had been kicked out of. It was Hell, which is the place that the Northern Rift connects to that we know about from this series. And then Ephaxia, I think is the name of the other place. Ephraxia. And Ephraxia is not the world that Feyre and Rhys are from, but it could be the world that Selena and all of them are from Throne of Glass, because that planet doesn't have a name that we know of either. And then whatever place this is, which they don't tell us the name of it. I'm already so intrigued, and we're only on page 20 and there's still so much book to go. Sorry about this really awful angle of filming. I don't know how to fix my camera. Brew. Did I get some tail wags? Scotty's giving tail wags over there. Yeah, Scotty's giving tail wags. Brew is just smacking me with her tail. Now she's not doing it. Wow, big yawn. Scotty. Hi, buds. Okay, bye. Oh, half a tail wag. Bud, I'm kind of using this as my own lap. Okay, okay. She just pushed my book off of my lap and sat on my arm. Buddy, I can't even pet you. You sat on my arm. The couch right there wasn't good enough. We needed to be on my lap. You moved my book. You just kicked it right off. How am I supposed to read when you're right here? Not my problem? Okay, not your problem? Yeah, that's about what I got from that. Okay, well, does that mean I'm done reading? I don't really know. Brew thinks it does. Her sister is laying here next to me like a good girl. Yeah, minding her own business. I have another mention about Bryce being a potential queen. She's still in whatever world that Feyre and Rhysand are from. And I'm going to put this down because I have limited hands at the moment. And 1 second. I want to read to you what it says. It's a great angle, isn't it? It's the dog's fault. We're just going to blame the dog. Rune had called her a queen before she left, and for the first time in her life, as she walked through that sea of death, she might have lifted her chin a bit higher, might have felt a mantle settle on her shoulders, a train of starlight in her wake, might have felt something like a crown settle upon her head, guiding her into the dark. A lot of mention of crowns and crowns on her brow and potential queen imagery. So now we have another one. My hair is questionable looking. I need to shower so bad. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Do we think that potentially the planet that Feyre and Rhysand are on is Hell? I know that they were alluding that it might be this unnamed planet, but what if it is in fact Hell? That's very interesting. Because Hunt's been visited by Apollyon and Adis, who are the Prince of the Chasm and his brother, who are the people or beings in Hell that Bryce was trying to search for, and then she ended up in a different planet, potentially, and the star is guiding her. We're alluding to it. The star put her there for a reason. And then they told Hunt that he was born to do something, accomplish a task for which your father brought you into existence. And then they said that he had been asking the wrong questions for far too long, And then they said, the black crown once again encircling your brow is not a new torment from the Asiri. It has existed for millennia. What does that mean? Right, you tricky little, well, I guess I was going to say human, but not technically a human. She's the reason that her wounds on her hands were never healing. She was intentionally picking off the scabs to bleed through the tunnels to encourage the Midgard worm to follow them, to attack them. Why? The problem with reading Sarah J. Maas's books as they come out is they come out very slowly, years between things, especially since like 2018, 2019, long time frames between books. Like there was a while where we were getting 2 books a year, one from the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and one from Throne of Glass. Then she finished Throne of Glass and she finished the original like trilogy of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then like books vanished from like the timeline for her. That being said, this scene that I just read of Nesta like fighting this worm, and she pulls this golden mask out of thin air, puts it on, becomes this other being, reanimates a dead skeleton, and then kills this worm. Badass, but I don't remember anything about that. Like, I don't remember the mask at all. I'm assuming that was a huge plot point from Silver Flames, but I read that book so long ago that I don't remember. I don't know. And you know, thinking about it, actually, isn't that on the cover of Silver Flames? Isn't it a mask? It's a mask, right? Yeah, totally. There's totally a mask on it. Here's a picture. I know that Nesta's a badass, but like, I don't remember this version of Nesta being a badass, but that was cool. I am becoming increasingly more frustrated. Ignore that. I cannot remember the plot or the details of A Court of Silver Flames because there's obviously important things happening here referencing A Court of Silver Flames, and I just don't remember what those things were. And like, sorry, my hair just dried in quite a wild way last night. We're talking about the tattoo again. The Starborn tattoo on Bryce's chest, and Nesta had a similar tattoo on her back that she got from a bargain that she made, a deal that she made. Don't remember what that is, but then also she's seen it someplace else. No Place Good. Don't know what that means either. Can't remember. And like, the more that we get into this book, the more that I think, and I think I've said this in another vlog that I did for like the book before this or whatever. Originally, Sarah J. Maas signed a 3-book deal for A Court of Thorns and Roses, which we got. You know, we got Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of War and Ruins. And then we got like little novella, Frost and Starlight or whatever that is called. And then we got Silver Flames. Because she signed a second book like deal. Like, so she signed in truth like a 6-book deal for the ACOTAR world. We got A Court of Silver Flames. And then there was like never any news about anything after A Court of Silver Flames. Again, that came out in 2021, and we all knew when, I think at least we knew about the Nesta book for years before it came out. I can't remember when Echo War came out. Maybe like 2018, 2019, sometime in that frame. But I feel like not long after that book came out, we knew we were going to get a Nesta book. And then like nothing about anything else. I like, is this series the other books? And she was like, you know what? I know I signed a 3-book deal to extend this universe, but I actually have this like really big idea, and I think we should do another book deal for another series. And I'm just going to intertwine the 2 of them. Because we never got more books in the ACOTAR series, and will we? I don't know. Maybe. Is this a trilogy and is this over? Is there more to this series? Is this the end? I don't know. Is it? Is this the conclusion? Does anybody know? I just assume that it's not. Sarah J. Maas is becoming Cassandra Clare. Like, every book is intertwined with the last book, and like every series is intertwined with the other series, and you have to read everything in like there's publication order, but then there's also like a wow. Did I just have a stroke? Chronological order. You know? So I'm just upset. I don't remember what happened from like the book I read 3 years ago. It seems like we've added a little bit of context to the Mask situation. Mask in Bryce's perspective is death incarnate and has like a sentience to it. And Nesta says that's what the mask can do. It can give the wearer control over death itself, like reanimating that corpse of the bones that she did. But it's also one of 3 items made from the cauldron called the Dread Trove, which is starting to tickle memories of in my brain. The mask is one of 3. They're all made by the cauldron, and Nest is also made by the cauldron, hence why she can wield the mask. And then the horn tattoo on the back of Bryce's back, on the back of her back, is also made by the cauldron. Could the horn potentially be one of the Dread Trove items? Like, I know that there's 3. I don't remember what the other 2 were. Obviously, it's the mask. I don't know if they ever mentioned what the other 2 were, but could one of them have been the horn, and the horn got taken out of this world and taken to Midgard 15,000 years ago when, you know, all of that happened? Potentially. I would have read one more sentence. The horn was brought to Midgard by Thea and Peleus from this world when they, you know, world traveled. So if I would have read one more sentence, I could have answered that question. Doesn't explain if the horn is part of the Dread Trove or not, but it is from this world. Correct. Turns out that this whole time they were walking to the prison, which, surprise to no one, I don't remember what that was. But Nesta did say it is a misty island off the coast of our lands, and they somehow had to have walked beneath the ocean to get there. Do I remember that? No. Is that where Amryn was held? The prison? I don't know. I don't remember. Like we're channeling 2008 with this drastic comb over situation happening here. But, oh gosh, just, okay. That, nothing is working. Oh God. Okay. Nothing made that better. Just ignore it. One of the other made objects is a harp. And I don't really remember that either. But Nesta's vision of the prison, where she had previously seen the 8-pointed star in the center of the prison, had a harp atop the star. And the star, according to Bryce, is like within a constellation on the floor. And the constellation is her world, her cosmos, her solar system, galaxy, or whatever. And Midgard, where the 8-point star is on the floor, is where Midgard would be in relation to all these planets and star systems and such. And Nesta had seen the harp on top of that star. And the harp can transport people physically, like whoever's playing it, between places. And it can also stop time itself. And it is one of the other made objects. So we have the mask and the harp. And now Bryce is asking, was there ever a made object called the horn? So obviously we're like following this book from 2 different worlds. We're following Bryce in the Akatar world with Nesta and Asriel, and then we're following Hunt in the dungeons back on Midgard, and we're following Lydia. She's unraveling some kind of plan also on Midgard, and then we're also following like the wolves, Ethan and Tharian, and the dog just fell off of the couch. You're so graceful, bud. Are you stuck? She's behind the couch now. Are you stuck, buddy? Oh, good job. Good job. You got it. Now she's holding her whale. Do you want me to throw it? What'd you bring? Do you want me to throw it? Yeah? Okay. Go get it. She brings me the toys. I throw them. Scotty goes and gets them. She takes them from Scotty. It's like a whole little like dance they've got going on here. But so obviously we're like following multiple point of views. That's what I was trying to think of. And I really only care about the one with Bryce. Like, the other ones are good. They're entertaining. Like, I'm not struggling to read them. But when my options are Bryce, Nesta, and Asriel versus anybody else, why would I pick anybody else to read about? This is kind of crazy. They're in the cavern in the prison, and she steps on the star, holograms appear, a story is being told, very info dumpy, but like at this point I don't even care because the info being dumped is cool. So it's this woman named Celine who is telling the story about her mom and her dad and like their stories and their memories and like how they came to defeat, they called them the Daglan, but it's the Asiri, same people, different name. Find out that Celine's mom served at the side of the Asiri for 1,000 years with the intention to usurp them. And Celine's mom is Thea. And we know that Thea escaped, obviously, into Midgard, or went into Midgard for some reason, and like things happened there. But when she came to Midgard, she brought her daughter Helena, an unknown daughter who was lost to time, with her. The unknown daughter is Celine. Did Celine ever leave this world, or did she go back to it? It also said that Celine looks like Rhysand's sister. Did we know Rhysand had a sister? Probably. We did probably know that at some point, and we did forget it. We, meaning me forgot it. Wow. There's like other things that I want to do today, but I'm like oh no, I'm invested. Oh no, I do need to go take my contacts out though, because this one is bothering me. Remember when I said the horn could maybe be part of the Dread Trove? Well, I don't know why I assumed the Dread Trove was 3 objects. Dread and Trove aren't like necessarily inherently derivatives of like 3 or trio or triad, but in my head it was 3, but it's actually 4. And she's saying my mother, Thea, used the time she served the Daglan to learn all she could about their instruments of conquest. The Dread Trove, we called it in secret. Their instruments of conquest. The mask, the harp, the crown, and the horn. Obviously, Nesta has the mask. The harp is missing. It was in this chamber and now it's not there anymore. The horn is tattooed onto Bryce's back, and then that also has something to do with the book of breathings, because that's like what Amryn referenced when she was talking about the tattoo. But then also the crown. And if you remember earlier, they said about Hunt that the thing on his head has been around for millennia, for centuries, and it's not like unique to him or whatever. Is that the crown? And why is it tattooed on his forehead? Love when things start coming together. Also, this masked queen that they saw on the carvings was masked, crowned, holding 2 instruments, a harp and a horn, meaning Thea used all 4 of them. But the Daglan always quarreled over who should control the Trove, so more often than not, the Trove went unused, which was their downfall. I'm having too many, moments to not keep telling you about them. So the cauldron was the final piece in their plan of Thea and Fion's, the last high king of those lands. The cauldron was from that world originally, the Nesta, Cassian, like that world is where the cauldron was from. But when the Daglan arrived, they seized it and warped its powers to turn it from what it had been into something deadlier, no longer just a tool of creation, but of destruction and the horrors it produced. Those too my parents would turn to their advantage. Fion pulled a long blade from the cauldron, dripping water, a black blade, whose dark metal absorbed any trace of light around it. The Star Sword. Bryce pointing out a very useful hole in the narrative is that Celine's and they used their weapons against them to bring them down. And Bryce is like, wait, how? How did they use those weapons? What the fuck did they do? How did they defeat them? And the, hologram that's been there for 1,500 years, 15,000 years is just and continues on. Oh, so the prison was once a royal territory. That's where Thea ruled. Once she kicked the Daglin out, she ruled from the island that the prison is now on. Interesting. So like they had been providing a tithe to the Daglin, similar to like what's been happening in Crescent City, where they have to like sacrifice part of their power or their light or whatever to fuel the Asteri. Obviously the Daglin and the Asteri are the same people, but they were doing that here too, and that weakened the Fae population and it weakened the land. So with them not there anymore, the land and the people grew more popular or more powerful, and the people on the land started to take on the like natural magic of the land. So when Thea was ruling over what is like the prison, dusk twilight, that's what the island was in its long buried heart, what her power bloomed into, the lands rising with it. It was, as she said, as if the island had a soul that now blossomed under her care, nurtured by her court she built there. And it became twilight and dusk. But Fion, the High King, did not find Thea to be worthy of taking on the mantle of High Queen, I guess. He was much, much older, and he was fading, dying, whatever. And so he wanted it to go to their first daughter, Helena. Thea didn't like that. Oh, no. Oh, no. The court didn't like that either, especially her first general, Peleus. He agreed with my mother that Helena was too young to inherit our father's throne, but my mother was still in her prime, still ripe with power, and it was clear that she'd been blessed by the gods themselves since she had been gifted children at long last. So it was just as it had been before. Those behind the throne worked to upend it. Oh, no. It sounds like they orchestrated his death in this bog. Thea and Peleus orchestrated the king's death, perhaps? I don't know. It's not like totally clear. Truth Teller was his best friend's dagger who died during the war. Yeah, was a murdering tyrant. Bryce called her classic stage mom. So she went out looking for other worlds based on what she had heard from the Daglin's conquests, because she wanted a world for each daughter, because only one throne could be inherited where she was, and she wanted that for herself, so she needed 2 more worlds for her daughters. Oh no. Explains why Midgard has it's like autumn court vibes to their fae, because the fire wielders to the south supported her. I love how she calls them fucking idiots, because Peleus wanted power like Thea's and could only overcome her and get that power if he had more powerful supporters. So he was actively searching for the Daglin and searching for places that they were interested in to hope to find them again. I agree with Bryce. When Thea opened the portal, it was Ridiculous on the other side, but he is often like in a fae form, and he's a teenage boy, so he looks very unassuming, and she didn't recognize him as the enemy that he is, and she willingly followed him right through that gate. Wow, what tricky little snakes. So she was promised that this world was unpopulated and that there was no one there that she would be harming. Turns obviously that there were people there. Shocking, I know. And they claimed to be fae that were separated from her people by the Daglin, and this was their chance to be reunited with their people. And so she thought that they were like people she was saving, but they weren't. They were the enemy. They intentionally let her walk into that world, like the Asteri, the bad people, the Daglin, to leave her home world where Nesta, Feyre, and all them are unprotected, because she took all of her forces with them. She left. Nothing was left there to protect them, and that's the world they wanted. I can't get over how intricate this plan is. Only did Thea and her fae walk into this world, but also other beings of, probably the shapeshifters and anything else that's in Midgard that's not a fae, were also lured there with the intent that they were also going to be conquering this world by the Daglin. The Daglin scoured the cosmos for different types of creatures to all lure there, but before they could have interspecies fighting, they found out that Midgard already had people on it, and all of them thought that it was empty. Wow, what a truth to be revealed. Is this what she had been sent here to learn? That she wasn't some brave savior scion, but descendant of a morally corrupt bloodline. Celine is telling us more of her story, and I'm gonna set you right there. My hair is doing more crazy. What? I just don't understand what is happening. Anyway, so she was saying that as they were waging war on Midgard, they found out that there was another kind of fae present as well, and that kind of halted Thea from doing, the murder. They were fae like us, but not. The ears, the grace, the strength were identical, but they were shapeshifters, all of them, each capable of turning into an animal, and each, even in their humanoid body, equipped with elongated canine teeth. Two seemingly unconnected and distant worlds, these new fae bore elemental magic, strong enough to make Peleus wary of them. Are these our Throne of Glass fae? But also, these other fae were loyal to Regulus and had seemed to have known him for quite some time. So they don't seem like they were exactly good fae. And I wouldn't say that. I mean, this is how many years before the Throne of Glass stories did this happen? Like, just because it's the fae from that world doesn't mean it's like literally the fae from that world. Like it could have been ancestors or whatever. I'm very interested. I'm very, very interested. Are we not supposed to know that Adis was a prince of hell? I feel like we knew that. He's the person of the chasm, right? And then his brother Apollyon is like the prince of the pit. Were we not supposed to know that they were princes of hell? Because this seems to be a revelation, and I feel like I already knew that or assumed it. But Adis is eventually who loves Thea, and he is from hell, which is obviously where Bryce was trying to go and didn't. And they're the only other planet to have defeated the Asteri. Drop was caused by a parasite in their water supplies, spun as being some sort of religious rite of passage for coming of age magical creatures. That's crazy. That's crazy, girlfriends. Interesting. The harp can also move objects from one place to another. So, including like magic. So the harp was able to take the magic from Thea, remove it from her, split it into two, and then put a piece into Thea, or into Celine and Helena, and also return a piece back to Thea. Oh, interesting. So Celine didn't go missing per se in the Midgardian stories like they thought. She went back home and left her mom, left Helena, her sister, left all of her people in Midgard to suffer the Asteri's wrath. She basically abandoned them all there and returned home. Decided to continue living on as if all of that was just a story to be whispered around campfires. I feel like most of this is just revelation after revelation after revelation. But we find out that Celine is the one who created the mythology behind the prison. She went and collected all of the monsters of the land that were formerly the Daglin's pets and put them in her old palace to create this sense of punishment, foreboding, cursed nature, so that it kept people off of the island and it kept people away from discovering the truth. And then she went on to marry some high lord son and became part of the night court. How funny. So interestingly, she had left this chamber here and the record of the story for her future generations' children, turned here to the place that had once been full of light and music and now housed only terrors, to leave this account for one whose blood will summon it. A child of my child, heir of my heir. To you I leave my story, your story. To you in this very stone I leave the inheritance and the burden that my own mother passed to me. But theoretically, that should be Rhys's bloodline. Theoretically, that should be Rhys or Rhys's child. And Rhys and Rhys's child are not here. It's Bryce and Nesta and Asriel. I don't really know what that means other than perhaps the fact that Bryce is like a descendant of her sister Helena's line, that she was able to get this to work or something, the magic. Because according to Asriel, Reese does not know these legends. They have been lost to time. So, interesting. It's not even one of her direct descendants from the Night Court, like she intended it to be, that unlocked all of this. Not sure how widely known it is at this point that A Court of Thorns and Roses is actually a Beauty and the Beast retell, like a very loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast. And A Court of Mist and Fury is a very loose retelling of Persephone and Hades. Something that we had always thought would come next or come down the line was a Snow White retelling. Because initially, like way long time ago, Throne of Glass was loosely inspired by Cinderella. Finally get the Snow White references in this book. She's been teasing like Snow White-esque things on her Pinterest boards for years, and finally we get it. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I mean, at the bottom of this mountain, underneath piles of rock and magic, Bryce finds a sarcophagus made of clear quartz lay in the center of the space, and inside it, preserved in eternal youth and beauty, lay a dark-haired female. Bryce's mind sped through possibilities. This place had been an Asteri palace before Thea claimed it, and in the tunnel carvings made by Celine to depict her mother's teachings, evil always waited below them. Bryce had never seen skin that pale. It glowed like a full moon. Her dark hair, it was too dark, somehow. It didn't reflect the light at all. It shouldn't have existed in nature. And was she wearing lipstick? No one had lips that vibrantly red. It feels kind of like a Valg. But that's not even from either of these worlds. That's a Throne of Glass character. Are the Valg Asteri? J. Maas has written a lot of like really quote unquote dumb female leads who do a lot of like really questionable things. But I mean, Bryce might be top of the list because Bryce just let this Asteri out of its frickin' sarcophagus because she wants to ask it questions. Like that can't possibly go poorly, you know? This is crazy. So she's saying her name is Vesperus, and she is from another planet, obviously is one of these Asteri, and they left that planet because they became too populous and they needed to expand in order to not like die off, and they called themselves world walkers or wayfarers. And she said that once they got to this planet, well, they found out that their magic isn't as potent in other worlds. Like the magic doesn't react to them the same, like they don't react with it the same. So they had to create the cauldron, and then like the dread trove, to like amplify their powers and whatnot. And then they magically tied the cauldron to this world. So were you to destroy the cauldron, you would destroy the world itself. One cannot exist without the other, which is crazy because like Nasta, Feyre, their whole mission has always been destroy the cauldron, but they can't without destroying the world. So apparently you can travel through worlds via like locations that are misty. So the veil between different worlds that makes it easier to travel from world to world, where like magic will like linger or like coalesce. Magic just tends to linger and collect in these places. Are misty, are veil filled, are covered in veils. And so if you think about any of the places in like ACOTAR that were like very misty, like this island, for example, or like the Bone Quarter, those are weaker spots in the veil and easier to travel between because they also hoard magic. Something interesting happened when she put the dagger and the sword into Vesperus in an attempt to kill her. One leaked light and one leaked shadows, and like together they were doing something, and that seemed to be weakening and killing Vesperus. And then Asriel had to go and ruin that, but she is officially dead. Nesta chopped her head off. Interesting to see what kind of powers the two like blades have together though, because Vespers kind of alluded that there was something there. Okay, the dog's gonna come join us. And they just didn't know what it was yet. Hi. I know. We're gonna go, but just not right this moment. So we've learned that apparently the dagger can unmake things. And it's combined with the sword, it can unmake things. Whatever that means, they haven't really quite figured it out. But when you combine them together, it creates a portal to a nothingness space of nothing that you can like send people to, I guess. And the only place that has this information is Avalon, which is shrouded in mists. And we now know that mists are important. We have the whole couch. And this is where she chooses to lay. Not anywhere over there. Just right here. On top of me. So we learned that Jessaba is 15,000 years old, which is crazy. She was a part of the human civilization that lived in Midgard before the Asteri took over. She was a priestess at Parthos, the library, and she was on the one ship that survived the fleeing of Parthos. The books that were on that ship are the only things left of that library, because everything else got intercepted by the Asteri, and the books were used as kindling to burn the other witches, which is really sad. Or priestesses, not witches. She was cursed by Apollyon to live forever, and when he touched her with said curse, he also transferred his power to her, and that's how she's become a witch and a sorcerer and lived for 15,000 years, and she won't stop aging until she shares the secrets and the weapons within the books with Apollyon, because they don't understand why you would ever save a library. So I don't know that there is so much like a weapon or anything in the books for him to learn about. I think it's more just like he didn't understand the human connection to books and learning, because he wasn't a human. So that was an interesting revelation. We have learned that Bryce intentionally teleported into the Autumn King's palace because she was hoping that he would provide her with information about the Star Sword and the dagger, which he did both. And then she badassed her way right out of there by locking her dad in the dungeons of his own house, his fireproof house, of which he disconnected all of the interweb technology. He sent home all of his guards. He like really does not think very much of Bryce. Also find out that Lydia has sons. She woke up on the ship, had a complete meltdown, freaked the fuck out, and has 2 sons. Are they Pollux' sons? How did nobody notice that she had sons? Not even halfway through the book yet. Interestingly, the mayor have always been on Midgard. They did not come through all the other like magical people that were summoned to Midgard. They were always there with the humans, and they are the root of the mermaid legends of the human people, which makes sense. And yeah, a lot of her territory and a lot of what her people used to like occupy and like the power that they once had was stripped away when the Asteri came. Dang, I feel like this just whole passage it hits like a special nerve in my gut to like read this, but it says behind Lydia talking, I wanted you to listen, but you wouldn't. Yet now that I fit some sort of acceptably sad female backstory, you're willing to hear me out. Would you have listened if I had no backstory other than realizing what was right and wanting to fight for it, of doing whatever it took to make sure that good prevailed against tyranny? Or does my being a mother somehow make my choices more palatable to you? Dang. So it seems like we might be missing some important islands or land masses. Celine mentions in her little monologue of the past that the island that we know of as the prison in the old world of the Fae didn't used to be this like secluded, uninhabited island. It became shriveled and became desolate and like shrinked and like lost its essence when she kept storing more and more monsters on it as a way to protect the horn that was like, or no, the harp at the bottom of the island. And then we learned from the Ocean Queen that when the Asteri first came to Midgard, because the Ocean Queen's been around since then, she and the Mer people have been around with the humans forever. She said islands just kind of sunk into the ocean. And then they're finding out that Avalon used to be a part of an archipelago of other islands, and the islands are missing, and they mysteriously went missing 100 years after the First War. They're on all of the maps from the First War, and then a map 100 years later, they're gone. What do we think the islands were? What do we think is important about them? Because obviously that's going to tie back in somewhere along the line. And what do you think did that to them? Something mysterious and suspicious is happening. Lydia and Rune are in the archives doing recon. They're team archives, while Bryce and Hunt and some others are team caves, and they're exploring the caves under Avalon. Rune and Lydia are supposed to be accompanied by Flynn and Deck as well. And they didn't show up to the second day of recon in the library. And Rune blazes past this very quickly, oh, they must just not have wanted to work today. But I think that might be suspicious. I think they might be in trouble. We're learning a little bit about earth magic and how Sathya and Flynn, Tristan, her brother, can both tell that Avalon is rotting and dead, and there's an ickiness to the land. Lydia has pulled a scroll from the First Wars, or from as close to the First Wars as she can find, and they used earth magic wielders to do scouting missions to find the best places to build strongholds, to build cities, and then they could detect the ley lines in the ground and where the most power was concentrated in order to build the most powerful cities, so they could draw on that power. It doesn't line up with the feeling that they're getting from Avalon. So I don't know, just something is really suspicious about this place. And the caves under Avalon are just like the caves that Bryce was going through in the other Fey world with Nesta and Azrael. So I don't know, something's happening. Something is happening. Oh no, the Autumn King just showed up in the tunnels with Bryce. He's gonna be mad. Remember when I mentioned that Flynn and Deck were missing, and that was probably not a voluntary skip on their duties? Morven and the Autumn King have them in the tunnels with them. So yeah, that's where they've been. Prue? Should we get up? Scotty wants to get up. Prue, wanna go outside? We can't walk. It's too cold. It's only 18 degrees and it feels like 4. Do you want to go play in the snow in the front yard? Go play in the snow? Want to go for a walk? Want to go outside? Doesn't care. Does not care. Scotty is like, yes, Mom, please, right now. I'd like to go. So it turns out the chamber that looks a lot like the chamber on the planet with the other Fae has a secret staircase in the sarcophagus where Peleus was supposed to be, but it was empty. Secret staircase. Down, 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 down. And it's an area entirely made out of black salt, which probably had an importance at some point that I don't remember. But black salt is, how you summon demons. They did just say that, but now I'm remembering. Summon demons. That's what Bryce used to summon Adis in her apartment, book 1. A dog is playing in the drapes. Polyon just said, welcome, son, to Hunt. Do we think that's a literal welcome, son, from my loins kind of son, or more of a metaphorical, just welcome and an endearment quality? Is Hunt a demon? Crown that Hunt has. At some point, in some iteration, they were collars. Black crowns were collars in hell, Thanatos answered darkly. Spells crafted by the Asteri to enslave us. They were a binding, one the Asteri adapted in their next war upon Midgard. So they used to be collars. Do you remember anything in any other series about collars? If you're thinking Throne of Glass and the Valg, then you would be thinking correct. That is also what I was thinking. Will that come into play anytime in this book? I'm so curious. I still have 300 pages to go. There's plenty of time. The princes of hell cannot be contained by the black crowns. The Asteri learned that. It was their downfall. As you were made by hell's princess, it should not be able to hold you. Meaning that they were so surprised to see Hunt with the black crown on his head because he is apparently a product of hell in some way, and that shouldn't have been able to hold him. And now we're like, what the hell? He was made by them, by these fuckers? Hunt had no idea what to say, what to do. Everything in his life swirled and diluted, his heartbreak ratcheting up to a thunderous beat. Third piece of the Star Sword, one went with Helena, one went with Selene, and one stayed with Thea, and Thea put it into her sword so that she could fight Peleus after she died, and after Helena built this, like massive fake kingdom to worship Peleus. When he died, she took that magic out of the Star Sword and hid it somewhere else to prevent the Asteri from getting it. And the reason that they picked Avalon is because it's a huge congestion of ley lines, and ley lines are where like lots of magic congregate, which we already knew, and the mists are a result of that. And that's why there's mists in Avalon and mists in other places like the Northern Rift. They're giant congregations of ley lines, and ley lines are both within planets and across galaxies or universes or whatever. So all of these planets that we've been talking about are on like a cosmic ley line, and that allows easy transportation between the planets and also allowed the Asteri to move from one to the other more easily. We still don't know who exactly is the father of Hunt, though. That has not been cleared up. But the only way to make the blades work is to have all of Thea's power. So she needs to find the missing power from the Star Sword before she can make them work. And all of this lore was planted by Helena. Apparently Thanatos, one of the princes of hell, is great at crafting things, and he made Hunt as a weapon for Bryce to use whenever she came along in the line to, do the prophecy. Interesting. So he has lightning powers, and we know that the Thunderbirds also have lightning powers. Apollyon said there were previous experiments that they hoped would spread and multiply throughout Midgard, but the Asteri caught wind of our plan and removed them. The Thunderbirds were an experiment from hell. Part of Apollyon that is in Hunt is the hellfire, or the lightning, and that's what he used to kill Sirius. It's how he ate the Asteri. Ha ha ha. Very funny. Hunt's name is Orion, known as the Master of Sirius. Apollyon's the Asteri that ate Sirius. Hilarious. I'm sick and tired of people using girl as an insult. You tell him, Bryce. And also, do we think the Asteri are being truthful? Like, do we think anywhere in this that they might be playing Bryce and they're not actually on her side? They just seem kind of suspicious to me. Well, hot damn. Rune came to save the day. He stabbed his father through the heart with his sword, with the Star Sword. Bryce melted his hand off. He's having a rough time. And then Rune decapitated him, sliced his head clean off. He always thought that he would die. The oracle meant that the royal bloodline would end with him because he would die. But he really thinks it means that the male lines, the starborn princes included, all you who have corrupted and stolen and never once apologized for it, the entire system, the bullshit of crowns and inheritance. And then he says, the line will end with me. because I yield my crown, my title, to the queen. Dang. And now the Autumn King is dead. They still have Morven to deal with, but the twins are dead and the Autumn King is dead. So not only did Bryce kill the Autumn King, but she now just took the dagger and stabbed it into Morven's heart. So now both of the Fae Kings are dead. And it's just left to Bryce. Very interesting thought here. So they think that Helena's portion of the star is hidden in the very land of Avalon. And they said, like why Avalon was once part of an archipelago, but now is only one island. She's tossing her ball in the air, hoping that I will throw it for her. Yep, there it goes. 1 second. You said Helena drew upon Avalon's ley lines to contain her mother's star, to hide it here, right? I think doing so drained all the land's magic from its ley lines and repurposed it to encage Thea's power. It made the land wither, just as you said Celine's own lands withered around the prison while it held her own share of power. She brought the ball back, by the way. So Bryce has claimed all of her fancy new Fae power from the caves, and now Avalon is blooming. There's green grass, there's flowers, there's rivers flowing, there's forests, islands have emerged from the sea. Dude! Yeah, you. So that's cool. Do you want to say hi? What do you have to say for yourself? Nothing? You're the one growling and making all the noise. This is how reading is going for me at the moment. I'm laying on my side. She's laying on top of my side. And she keeps smacking my book with her feet. Because she'd rather I pet her than read. Can I get to the end of this chapter? No, don't do that. I know you just want attention, but you're being a little much right now. As I was saying, so it seems like even though the Asphodel Meadows got bombed, which is where Bryce's parents live, they all survived. Her parents and the Thunderbird that they're adopting all survived, and they're now in Avalon with Bryce, and she's preparing to go to the Northern Rift to fully open it and let Helen. Ethan took the antidote that Hypaxia has been working on to rid them of the parasite that's in the waters. And now that he's taken it, he can summon ice and snow. He's like, no wolves have ever been able to summon elemental magic before. They can only shift in and out of wolf form and have extra strength, but never magic like that. So that's very interesting. Maybe they're not shifters so much as something more, like some kind of other version of Fae or shape-shifting Fae, or I don't know, something. Ma'am, you're in my way. I know you want belly rubs, but I want to read. Okay. I feel like we have a few things to update. We have had Sabine murder her dad, the Prime, dead. And then Ethan, well, before that happened, Ethan got named Prime, apparent, by the Prime, and Sabine did not take that very well. So then she killed her dad, and then Ethan killed her, and then the astronomer also was killed, and then Sigrid drank a lot of souls, ran away. So now Ethan is the leader of the wolves. Very, very cool. Still lots of cool powers. Hopefully he gets to keep them for a little bit longer with that cure. And we get to see him do some more cool shit with them. Now we're back with Bryce and Hunt at the Northern Rift, and they're opening the gate. And who is sitting at the other side of the gate? Nesta. And she seems surprised. So does the gate actually not go to hell? Could Bryce channel the gate to go somewhere else? Or are Nesta and Feyre and all of them living in hell? Is that the name of their world? I thought we were done with them when she left at the beginning of the book. So this is exciting. Interesting. Okay, so they opened the Northern Rift to a place other than hell. So wherever Nesta and Feyre and Rhys live is not hell. Bryce wants the mask from Nesta. She's going after the Dread Trove. Because of course she is. She shoved her parents through the rift to keep them safe. That's an interesting thing to do. And she didn't tell them, and they just went to another world. I hope that it works out for them. So Bryce put the mask on and it told the harpy to like be at peace, and the harpy just laid down and desiccated and is gone. We gotta go back. I think I missed something. So Erd in the old world was called Word with a Y, and where did I miss this? I think I have to go back and read the last page. Because word keys, word gates. Okay, so the Underking is saying that he's not from hell. He was birthed by the void, but my people, they were not unknown to your ancestors, Wolf. I crept through when they charged so blindly into Midgard. This place is much better suited to my needs than the caves and barrows I was confined to. And Ethan said, you came from the Shifters world? And the Erd King says you were not known as shifters then. And she, the Underking, went on, gesturing to the unusual depiction of Erd towering above him, was not a goddess, but a force that governed worlds, a cauldron of life, brimming with the language of creation. Erd, they call her here, a bastardized version of her true name. Word, we called her in that old world. Ethan had a pretty big moment just now. He turned the Underking into a popsicle, and then Hypaxia shattered him into a million shards with a metal brazier. And he's now dead. That happened so fast. This big, bad, powerful dude, gone. Like that. I guess also because Hypaxia killed him, she is now the head of the House of Flame and Shadow and this place, and she has to decide what to do with the souls, and she can command them to speak. That's crazy. I know I keep saying that, but like, it's not where I saw things going. I don't really understand how she's comfortable like that. I feel like it's been kind of a minute since I last told you what was happening in the book, so I'm so close to the end, guys. Like, so close, less than 100 pages. And what's happened recently is Rune shot Lydia in the leg because she was becoming a liability, a possible liability, as she was making irrational decisions. Granted, she's just trying to save her kids, so like, I get it, but not a lot of thought, too much action, so he shot her in the leg, and then he left her to go rescue her sons with a little bit more thought, brain behind his decisions. And then the Asiri kind of misgauged how the demons of hell were going to attack, and so they mismanaged their forces, and the good guys, our people, like I'm part of it, were able to like stop them or like divide their forces or like kill half of them, something. It was good. It was a good thing. And then Bryce and Hunt went to the battlefield, and they killed Polaris, which is one of the Asteri, by sucking her into a black hole with the two swords that they used to impale her, Truth Teller and the Star Sword. So we got to see that in action. That was pretty cool. They revived all of the wings that were cut off of angels from the palace, and they had souls still attached to them, and they went into the mech suits. So like, that was a whole thing that happened. So yeah, we're just like rocking and rolling with the ending here. We're getting close. Things are dying. A little concerned for our people dying, but we're trucking along. Also, I hope that Bryce gets her parents back. So there was a moment when Lydia and Rune were together that he described a feeling that he didn't have words to, or like couldn't put words to, and I was like, oh, they're mates. Duh, because so typical Sarah J. Maas. And then he just revealed to us on this page that they are in fact mates, and then offered himself up to Pollux to be literally dismembered, joint by joint, limb by limb. So that's fun for everyone. So Lydia has fire magic. Ethan has ice magic. Therian obviously has water magic, but we've established that the Mare have always been in this world, so I think we can count Therian out of being one of the creatures that came through 15,000 years ago. But they're all starting to develop elemental magic. And Bran is apparently named Brannon. Is there another character in the Sarah J. Maas world named Brannon? The fire magic is obviously like very interesting because there's a very famous Sarah J. Maas character who has fire magic and blonde hair. So, you know, I just can't help but wonder. Into a deer? You know, it turns into a deer, and like the stag and the deer like have like a whole thing. I didn't have time to put the phone down all the way. Ace, one of Lydia's kids, what are you? Still panting, blazing with fire, Lydia said in old bloodline. Oh, I can't even. I need to keep reading. I'm like tearing up because I'm getting so excited. Okay, absolutely wild that Lydia just breathed fire down Pollux's throat and cooked him from the inside out. Like he was dead in 2 sentences, and I feel like we should have had a little bit more time to really appreciate that death because, you know, it's warranted and it's well deserved by Lydia, but she just breathed flames down his throat. I thought the name Brannon was familiar. It confirmed what Lydia had long guessed. The shifters were Fae from another world, Danica had explained. Blessed with a Fae form and a humanoid one, gifted with elemental powers. That's why she named Brannon after the oldest legends from her family's bloodline, her dad's family. Of a Fae king from another world, fire in his veins, who had created stags with the power of flame to be his sacred guards. That's totally the Brannon from Throne of Glass. What? Also experimented on by the Asteri to the point that they lost their pointed ears. So this isn't good. Rigolis has told Bryce, because she finally got to the core and is about ready to blow it up with the rifle. And he said to her, that core is tied to Midgard's very soul. You destroy it and its entire planet will wink out of existence. Our fate is tied to that of this planet. You kill our source of nourishment and you doom every living soul on Midgard as well. That sounds not good. The language that's inked in the horn on her back is the same language of the Book of Breathings, the old language that Amryn talked about, and it's also the native language of the Asteri. So all of those things must be from the same place, right? So Jessica sacrificed her life for Bryce. They traded places since Bryce got sucked into the black hole portal thingy with the Asteri, and Jessica traded places with her. So she is now dead, and Bryce appears to be living on. I'm so cold. It is like negative 20 something outside. So cold. Also, this dog. Look at her. Dude. Can you just, that's a good girl. Yes, you too, buddy. No, stay. No. Stay. No. Oh, what did I do? That's a good girl. So Bryce went back to get her parents from Nesta, and we get to see Cassian for a minute, and we hear of Feyre and Rhys, so that was fun. But she said you had an 8-pointed star tattooed on you, and you found the chamber with the 8-pointed star in the prison too. Nesta, so I want you to take the star sword. Gwydion, whatever you call it here. The age of the Starborn is over on Midgard. It ends with me. Then she says, I think that 8-pointed star tattooed on you for a reason. Take that sword and go figure out why. Are you gonna get more Nesta? Oh, I finished A Court. Nope. House of Flame and Shadow. So I figured that we could talk a little bit about my overall thoughts on it and the ending and kind of what I've thought now that I've read this 800-page book. It does seem like this is going to be the conclusion for these characters and this character arc. We get to it and all of the bad guys have been defeated. The world has been restored. Bryce and Hunt get to go live normal lives. All of their friends get to go live normal lives. So it doesn't seem like we're going to be returning to this world in any future books, at least not like directly. Sarah J. Maas is starting to like dabble with some cross series
characters and some cross-series storylines, so we might see the characters again, but I don't think we're going to be returning to this like world per se. I know that was a question that I had been wondering earlier on, like, is this a trilogy? Is this a longer series? Like, what's the fate of this? And I think that this is wrapping up this 3-book story arc for sure. Feelings about the book as a whole, I enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I love the characters. I love this world. I love the fact that it did reference Throne of Glass a tiny bit. Like, it definitely didn't do the fan service to Throne of Glass fans in the way that it did fan service to the ACOTAR fans, because those had actual like characters in here, and we actually went to that world, and like they played a big role in making sure that we won. And Throne of Glass was mentioned like way more in passing. Lydia and Ethan and some of the other characters definitely came from that world and definitely were Fae at one point and had, you know, been diluted through these dirty methods to become shapeshifters and lost their elemental magic. And we get a character reference to Brannon because Lydia names her son Bran after Brannon, and she turns into a deer, which is, you know, like similar to the stag and the mythology in that world. But it just didn't give me as much Throne of Glass as I wanted it to, and I kind of thought it wouldn't. Like, she's made it very clear that Throne of Glass had like, what, 8 or 9 books if you include the short story collection, and like that world is done. We have spent so much time there. She has spent so much time there that we're like done in that world, which obviously makes me sad because my favorite series. For events that happened in this book, something that I noticed, I've already edited like the whole vlog aside from this like wrap-up clip, and something that I've noticed as I was watching myself and editing is that the deaths of the characters in this book, especially like the villain deaths, were very quick. Very much like accomplished on the first go. They weren't satisfying in that we didn't get to see like our main characters struggle. There was never really any feeling that any of the characters' lives were at stake, if that makes sense. Like, I never felt that everyone that we started with wasn't going to make it to the end. There was a scene, I talked about this in the vlog, that Rune steps in front of Lydia to protect her and her kids and announces like, oh my God, we're mates. And that endangerment of Rune lasted maybe half a page. Lydia killed Pollux in 2 sentences. Bryce killed the Asteri in a couple of pages, but like we watched it from afar. Like, we watched that scene through Hunt's perspective, not Bryce's perspective. I guess Bryce does technically die. I guess like there is that. I kind of forgot that happened. That is so uncommon for the main character to actually die, and it's so Allegiant coded that I never thought she was actually dead. Like, there was always a part of me that thought Bryce is gonna come back to life, and she did. And it wasn't very long between her dying and coming back to life in which that happened. So I don't know, I just felt like the stakes weren't super high. Like, I didn't feel that Rune or Lydia, Flynn, Therian, like any of those characters were actually ever in danger. And I don't know that she ever put them in like massive amounts of danger. So like, that is the one thing, is that I don't think that the risk was as high as maybe some of her other series finales have been, where you feel more concern for the characters. I also think that this is the series that I feel the least amount of attachment to the characters. I don't know if it's because I'm older reading the series that like I don't have those same fangirl attachment feelings that I did when I was younger. I don't know. I haven't had that feeling towards a book in many, many years. So I don't know if I've just outgrown that, or if the book truly just didn't accomplish whatever thing worked so well for me in the other series. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a me thing or a book thing. It could be a combination of both. I'm not really sure. I feel like I need to be more in my reading element to really decide how I feel, if that was on me or if that was on the book. Like, I need to read some more things. I've been so like out of touch and disconnected from my reading for so long that I don't know what to blame that on. But I did feel a little bit less invested and a little bit more detached than some of her other series, which is kind of a bummer. Because that's like why I read Sarah J. Maas, is because of how captivating I find her characters and her worlds, And they are a little bit of an escape for me. It is something that I turn to, like a comfort. Not reading this for any amount of like positive content. Like, we're not reading this for diversity. I'm not reading this for learning. I'm not reading this for a challenging, like, this is a comfort. This is a place that I come to when I am feeling like really overwhelmed and stressed in my real life or in the real world, that like I need to invest in something familiar and safe feeling. I know there's like a whole discussion on comfort reads and like how we interact with those. And that's what she's always been for me. I've always turned to her in times of like stress and distress in my life, and I just didn't feel as escaped into this as I normally do. But this is the first book that I've like completed and read voluntarily of my own free will and not through like book club in a very long time. Sorry that my dog is chewing on her bone right now on the hardwood floor. I don't really know. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 5 stars still. I'm very much looking forward to whatever she writes next and wherever we go next. I kind of feel like we're going to go back to the ACOTAR world because of how this ended with Bryce giving the Star Sword to Nesta and returned the mask to Nesta and told Nesta to go find whatever reason there is that she has an 8-pointed star tattoo on her and why the sword and everything had been called to her and like what her destiny to those things are. So yeah, I'm excited to see what else comes of that. I know there's like no book announcement right now for Sarah J. Maas. We don't really know what she's doing or like where we're going next. And it seems that as of recently, her books come out every 2 years. So I don't think that we're going to see anything from her for a little while still. I enjoyed it. I'm happy that I read it. I'm proud of myself for completing it. It was a big series. It was a big book. And given how my reading has gone in the last couple of years, I just didn't think that this was ever going to be achievable. I don't really feel like nitpicking it too much at this point because I'm just looking for like a positive reading experience right now. I need to enjoy something that I'm reading. I need to like not hate a book. So I don't want to like pick this apart too much right now. Maybe in the future when I've read some other things that I'm enjoying and that I'm like feeling connected to and invested in, we can like pick this apart more for its faults and flaws and such. But right now I need a win. And this was a win in a lot of ways. So I'm excited that I read it, and I would love to talk to you about it in the comments down below. I'm sorry this vlog is 10 million years long. It is one of the longest vlogs I've ever put out, but if you've watched it the whole way through, I really appreciate you being here, and you can come find me online on these various platforms. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye.